Welcome to this video tutorial for DTMaster and for the stereo measurement parts in the info software. We want to give a short overview how you can measure stereo and what options you have for opening a stereo model and also to change the stereo model parameters. You need to have, of course, orientated imagery and the photos need to be activated. So then we can use, in this case here, either the best fit stereo, which you can either find with this icon here, or you can also find it here in view best fit stereo. When we go to the tool options, then when we would click now into our main view, then these parameters here from the tool options will be used. Therefore, if I would click here into, of course, if I have only a single image, then nothing happens. We can go into the output log and see that we do not have enough images for running here this best fit stereo. If I go here in the overlap area, then I will open up here my stereo model. In this project, we only have one single camera, so this first option won't have an impact. But if you have a project with multiple cameras, then you could choose stereo pairs only coming from the same camera. The next one is the strip constraint. I will close here the stereo. So if I go here into this overlap part, and I have a strip constraint activation, then a stereo model can only be defined from images coming from the same strip. So in our case, we have strips defined. So we can see here, this is one strip, this is one strip, this one, this one, and this one. So that means if I go in DTMaster and I click into this area, only images from one strip can be chosen. So I click here in, and then I get as a stereo model here the image pair 144857 and 144900. So these two images are here, when we zoom here in the applications master, we see are two neighboring images, but this will we see with the next parameter. So this is then also depending on how much overlap we allow and what is the best intersection. But they are both coming from the same strip. If we return to our options for the best fit and we remove the apply strip constraint, and we go now here again into this overlap area and we click here, then we see now that we get a stereo model where the north direction is here pointing not up. And therefore we have now two images, 144857, 145232. And these two, in this case here, are these two images from two different strips, which makes sense as we are not anymore applying a strip constraint. And the position where we selected the point here in our part here is these two projection centers are here the best fit with our settings, which are at least to have 40% overlap between these two images, and secondly that we don't have images that are more oblique than 10 degrees, and therefore they are the closest one to the position. So let's go here back. So if this is my cursor, my position, so the distance from my hand where I see here on the screen to the projection center of 144857 and the distance to 145232 are the two shortest distances. The distance from my cursor to 144900 or 145229 is further away than to these two ones. So this is here the two shortest distances. If I would have placed perhaps over here, then it would take these two. And if I'm perfectly in the center, I'm not sure, perhaps it takes these. So if I go a little bit more upper, then these two are closer. If I go a little bit down, then these two are closer, but here in the center, the distance to these two projection centers is the shortest one in comparison to the other ones, and therefore there was a stereo model created with not strip constraint. I could now still say I want to enforce north-oriented images. So that means if I again go here into the same position, still no strip constraint, but north aligned view is forced, then in this case I get again a stereo model pointing north, as this is preferred as the best fit stereo, which is not north oriented, which was in this case our second try. The next parameter, maximum oblique angle, is I think self-explaining. So if you have not nadir looking images, but if your photo is looking oblique, then we can say only to choose images with a maximum oblique angle of 10 degrees. In our case, we have only nadir images, so we cannot showcase this here. And the last two allow us now to not take the two closest ones, but based on a criteria of intersection angle and overlap. So I will just switch these two. So I will say best intersection angle 60 degrees. And even if they only overlap, let's say 5 or 10%, I am still allowing it. I don't minimize here a minimum overlap. And then I will just here apply strip constraint and do not force north. And if I now click here again into this area here, taking now this selection, we can now see that we have here image 144853 and 144900. And these two images are now not anymore the two neighboring images, but it's now the first and the third image, mainly because we change the intersection angle that is preferred if it's somewhere around 60 degrees. If I decrease it to 15 degrees, then if I click now here into this area, then I will now get the second and third one. So in this case here, it's the two neighboring photos. Okay, so this is how to initially define my stereo model. You can open multiple ones. I will just stick here again with one basic one. I want here to have a minimum overlap here of 40%, and I want to have the strip constraint. So I will here just click here and open my stereo model. But we can also create stereo models by selecting photos directly from the photo list. So I can go to the photo list and say I want now to match here this photo, let's say for example the 144853, and if this overlaps a little bit with the 145229, then I could even take these two photos and create a stereo model. And I just need to select them here. So we can go to the list and take here the photo 144853 and then 145229, 145229. So these two, having them selected, and then you can click here view in stereo, and then these two photos are opened as a stereo model if they overlap. Yeah. So in my case here, there's a slight overlap here between these two photos, and this will then be displayed in our stereo view. Normally you don't use this function, except some people are using this to check the stereo parallaxes. So after an error triangulation, this would be, for example, an interstring stereo model to check how the stereo parallaxes are here given, if they are stereo parallax free or not. And because here we have two images coming from different strips, and secondly also with here very extreme angles, and then we could see here if they are perfectly fitting or not. But aside from this, we want here to go to the next part. After opening an automatic stereo model, we can, in the options preferences here in the views stereo, define how we continue with our stereo model change. By default, this is now here. You can activate the automatically load next stereo model, and then we can see with the edge we can define when we will move from the current stereo model into the next one. So here this means, if I zoom out a lot again, then we have here our complete stereo area, and if I take here this distance, and let's say this is 100%, then if I would cut it down to 90%, that means 5% to the left, 5% to the right. That means if I reach with my stereo cursor here this border, then it will automatically jump now here into the next stereo model. Yeah? So therefore this was here my center. So if I come with my center close to this edge, then now it will then change to the other stereo model. If I go back to the options, if I would make this to 100% or 99%, then we will stay as long as possible here. And you already have seen here, this border was now extended, and now we move later to the next part, also backwards the same way. The next parameter is the maximum rotation of the pair. So at the moment we have opened the image 144,853, 144,857. So this is this two images, and we see here already with the strip, this blue line, this is the base. So that means if I have a stereo model that also has a direction similar like this one here, then it will try to take as a next stereo model a similar one, plus minus our, I think was it 10 degrees? Yeah, plus minus 10 degrees. Which means in our case, a model coming from this image with this one will probably not be chosen, because if I select this image and this one, and this is my base direction, and this is more than 10 degrees from this direction away. Therefore, normally when we have this option set and we move now downwards from this stereo model and we have two flight directions which are similar, then we should now go into the next strip, also looking north. And of course, same when we go back, I return to the last strip before. I think it's clear, the more degrees you allow, the more you will tend to get perhaps not any more stereo models coming from similar strip directions. So if you want to go from one strip to the next strip, then you should stay more in the smaller values, so 10 to 20 degrees, depending how good your plane was flying. And therefore, if you go here further and further, I mean, if I reach 90, then of course I can now create a stereo model that is generated from the upper strip and the lower strip. So I don't want this. So some projects today have extreme overlap. So even between the strips, you have 80–90% overlap between the strips. And therefore, if we really want to stay in the same strip, you can restrict your stereo model change. So this will only leave us in this strip. So that means if I start here in this best fit stereo with this model here from this strip, then this restriction will always keep me in this strip and I cannot bounce down. If you have a 80% overlap, it means this second strip is not here, it's almost here, and therefore there is a probability, a higher probability, that you can then jump back and forth between the strips. And typically you want to systematically go through the strips in some workflows, and this can be enforced by restricting to pairs of the same strip only. And the remaining three options, they come now more and more from the oblique or multi-head cameras. So restrict to pairs of the same camera. If you have a multi-head system, Typically this is then generated from 5 cameras, so one nadir, then you have one front view, backward, left and right. And so if we would restrict it to the same pair of camera from a multi-head, then this would help us because we can open a stereo model with 2 front looking images, and this is the camera. Let's call it the front camera. And then if we move on, then we stay in the front camera, and then we go always with the same viewing direction of the camera through our project. Similar is also the intersection angle. So prefer with similar intersection angles. That would be also for the multi-head, that we then try to find 2 which are looking with the same intersection angle. So first and second front camera, second, third front camera, always this par. And finally, we have the preferred pairs with closer model center. So this is now when you have a lot of overlap and we want to have the possibility to look nicely straight down into streets. And so we want to choose the pair with where the closest model centers are to each other, even if the intersection angle is not so good. So we will have not a good height measurement accuracy, but there is not much oblique or occlusion in these models. We can look here very straight down for strong overlaps of nadir projects. These options are here our first try to solve issues based on high overlap, also oblique data sets, and therefore we tried here to restrict or prefer cameras or intersection angles, and therefore we are still looking here to advance these tools, but they should give us a decent amount of options to run through our projects. Okay, so I hope this helped. Just to summarize, you have on the one side the beginning of your stereo model, which is the best fit stereo view best fit. Here you can choose from the tool options how your stereo model is created. It's a very nice tool to quickly go to a location, click into it, and then these options will take part. And then when you want to continue, then you need to define your automatically load next stereo pair option with the options how you want to continue from the starting stereo model. And of course, all the values from your starting stereo model will then be the reference for all these other parts. That means if I want to prefer similar intersection angle, then depending what you have defined here in your best fit stereo, you can here influence the stereo model that was chosen, and then we can continue with similar intersection angle pairs in our measurement. Okay, thank you for watching.